Welcome back to the deep dive. You gave us a pretty serious stack of sources this week, all circling around one big question. What is the actual state of Canadian national security right now?
It's a deep dive into the warnings, really. Our mission today is to systematically unpack the insights from CSIS, the Canadian Security Intelligence Service, specifically from Director Dan Rogers' first big public address this past November.
And, if you are hoping for a quiet sort of status quo update, this isn't it. Rogers did not pull any punches.
Caught it all.
He called the geopolitical environment, and I'm quoting here, more dynamic and unpredictable than at any other time in recent memory.
And the threats themselves he described as complex and dynamic. This is clearly an intelligence agency trying to grapple with a whole new reality.
Yeah, it's a fundamental shift. It's moving way beyond that classic Cold War spy versus spy stuff.
Exactly. It's moved into targeted transnational attacks and, maybe most worryingly, this rise in domestic ideological violence that's taking up more and more of CSIS's resources.
Before we even look overseas, let's just hit you with the most jarring statistic from the source material, because it really speaks to that domestic reality.
Okay.
Rogers warned of a worrying trend. Nearly 1 in 10 terrorism investigations at CSIS now involves a minor. Someone under 18.
It's an unbelievable number.
It is. That's where we're headed in this deep dive. But first, we need to look outward. So, okay, let's unpack this. Let's start where national security usually does. Traditional espionage.
Right.
Our sources say Rogers named 4 adversarial states specifically. What are they after now, and who are they targeting?
Well, the list of countries won't surprise you, but the targets. That's what's really evolved. I mean, yes, intelligence services always want classified government secrets.
Of course.
But now they are aggressively, and I mean aggressively, going after the private sector, academic institutions, even provincial or municipal governments.
Not just Ottawa.
Not just Ottawa. Their assets, their data, their innovations. Foreign intelligence services see these as the things that can quickly shift the global balance of advantage.
And nowhere is that more obvious than in the Arctic. 2 of the named adversaries are operating heavily up there. Let's start with Russia, which Rogers called unpredictable and aggressive.
Yeah, Russia is a huge priority. And that's because of its significant and, frankly, growing military presence in the Arctic. CSIS has seen Russia actively spying on governments and private companies in the region.
What are they looking for?
They're trying to get sensitive intel on, energy, transportation, military capabilities, anything that gives them an edge up there.
But it's not just confined to the far north, is it? What I found fascinating was the complexity of the networks they're using to get around sanctions, related to the war in Ukraine.
That's a crucial insight. CSIS has been really busy trying to counter these Russian illicit procurement networks.
And these aren't simple transactions.
No, not at all. They operate through these sophisticated, really complex chains of Europe-based front companies. All of them are just trying to illegally get their hands on Canadian goods and technologies.
For their military.
For their military, exactly.
Yeah.
CSIS determined that they were destined for Russian military efforts in Ukraine and elsewhere. And on top of that, they've had to ramp up efforts to just deny entry to Russian intelligence officers and counter potential sabotage efforts here in Canada.
Okay, so Russia's actions are tied to geography, immediate military needs. But the other big player up there, China, the People's Republic of China, they seem to be playing a longer game, a more strategic one.
They are very different. China is, a non-Arctic state,
Yeah.
but they are clearly seeking a strategic and economic foothold in the region. That's the phrase Rogers used.
And their methods are different, too.
Completely. Their espionage is highly modernized. It focuses on recruitment. Chinese spies are actively trying to recruit Canadians with access to sensitive government information, military plans, that sort of thing.
And like you said, they're not knocking on doors in Ottawa.
No, exactly. They're reaching out on social media, on online job platforms. They're just looking for that one valuable connection, that person they can manipulate or pay to gather intelligence that gives Beijing an edge.
So, okay, we have these 2 states focused on geopolitical and economic advantage.
Mm-hmm.
But the threat shifts dramatically when we talk about transnational repression.
It really does.
We're moving from stealing secrets to targeting people directly on Canadian soil. Which states are crossing that line?
That line is transnational repression, and here the sources name Iran and India specifically. And this is a truly insidious threat because it targets the fundamental rights and freedoms that, are supposed to define Canada.
The right to free speech, to dissent.
And just the right to feel safe in your own country. The methods are terrifyingly broad. We're talking surveillance, spreading disinformation, extortion, threatening loved ones back home, and at its most extreme,
Direct threats to their life.
direct threats to their safety and life. The stated purpose is just chilling. It's to deter people from exercising their right to free speech and lawful advocacy.
And with Iran, it got so bad, CSIS had to shift its focus.
They did. The sources show CSIS had to actually reprioritize operations just to counter Iranian intelligence services and their proxies who were targeting dissidents right here.
It's hard to overstate how serious that is. The sources confirm that in just the past year, CSIS disrupted multiple, potentially lethal threats against individuals in Canada.
That is an overt threat to life on our soil that our intelligence agency had to directly intervene to stop.
Wow.
Yeah, it's about physical safety, it's about national sovereignty, and that's why the shift in resources was so immediate. And, similarly, India was named as engaging in these same kinds of repression efforts.
Targeting who?
Activists, journalists, and various cultural, ethnic, and religious groups. It's clear foreign governments are trying to aggressively manage dissent within our communities.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me. We're moving from physical territory and physical bodies to data itself. Rogers made a very specific warning about the weaponization of information.
He did. The implication here is profound. The battlefield is now largely digital, and the currency is data.
So it's not just military blueprints anymore.
No. Rogers noted that while spies used to go after government secrets, today, the most advanced tech and the deepest data sets are often held by the private sector and academia. The target is the massive amount of data that supports our entire economy.
And the core threat here is where that data actually lives, geographically speaking.
Precisely. Canada's data is increasingly residing in the hands of foreign governments and the corporations in their jurisdictions. Rogers warned that this reality arms hostile states with new ways to weaponize data and information against us.
So our data becomes a tool for coercion.
A tool of coercion and attack, yeah. It allows for this subtle but potentially devastating interference. It's interesting, too, how quickly these warnings seem to be bleeding into high-level policy. Prime Minister Mark Carney was mentioned.
Right, he hinted at a strategy related to this.
He did. He talked about a national strategy to establish Canada's data sovereignty as part of a bigger push for competitiveness in things like critical minerals. So these warnings are already shaping national planning.
Which brings us back home, back to the domestic front, and that alarming trend we opened with, the radicalization of youth. Rogers called violent extremism one of Canada's most significant national security concerns. Why now?
He links it to these broader societal issues, things like eroding social cohesion, increasing polarization, and significant global events. All these factors create a fertile, really volatile ground for radicalization, especially among young people.
And just to anchor that again, nearly 1 out of every 10 terrorism investigations at CSIS now involves at least one subject under 18.
That statistic just. It means CSIS is now in the business of child protection and national security at the same time.
An impossible balancing act.
It really is. And the ideologies feeding this are all over the map. You have xenophobia, anti-Semitism, misogyny, religion, but also these really niche, terrifying ideologies like accelerationism.
For anyone who hasn't heard that term, what is it exactly?
It's basically the idea that modern society is so broken it has to be violently sped toward collapse, just torn down to make way for a new, often ethnically pure order. It's nihilistic and incredibly dangerous.
And what makes it so hard to track is that it's not always centralized.
That's right. And this might be the most chilling part. Many of these individuals turn to violence after being radicalized exclusively online, often with no direction from anyone else. It's self-directed extremism, just amplified by these toxic digital echo chambers.
The numbers are abstract until you attach a case to them. The sources gave 2 specific examples that really bring this home.
They do. The first was in May of 2025. A 15-year-old minor in the Edmonton area was arrested for terrorism-related offenses, and they were tied to this network called COM764.
What was that?
Rogers described it as a transnational violent online network that manipulates children and youth. So that shows you the international digital scale of this problem.
And the second example shows how lethal these plans can get, right here.
Absolutely. The case from 2023-24 in the Ottawa area, it involved 2 other 15-year-olds. They were arrested for allegedly conspiring to conduct a mass casualty attack that was specifically targeting the Jewish community in Canada.
15-year-olds.
15. The youth element, combined with that lethal intent, is clearly pushing CSIS's operational limits. On a more positive note, Rogers did offer a glimpse of a potential solution, something beyond just intelligence work.
Okay.
He suggested that social support for youth and community involvement, that these things can help curb radicalization early, before it ever reaches the stage of needing a CSIS investigation.
So what does this all mean? If you boil this deep dive down, we have three major escalating concerns.
Right.
Aggressive foreign states like Russia and China in the Arctic,
Right.
the looming risk of our data being weaponized, and this fast-rising danger of online radicalized youth tearing at our social fabric here at home.
It means CSIS is operating in an extraordinarily complex environment. They have to be flexible enough to counter illicit procurement one day, disrupt a lethal plot the next, and then address radicalized children the day after. It's a huge mandate.
So this leads us to our final provocative thought for you to consider.
Okay.
Given that Director Rogers himself observed that youth radicalization is often driven by eroding social cohesion and operates online, often without any outside direction, we have to ask, where does the responsibility lie beyond the intelligence agencies to foster the social stability needed to immunize younger generations against these violent extremist ideologies?
That responsibility extends far, far beyond the intelligence community.
Something critical to think about as you process this deep dive. We'll talk to you next time.